Hello, everyone, and welcome to Evolve Women's Wellness Untalked About podcast. Today we have joining us Michelin, Christine, Renee, and Tasha, and you may remember them from previous podcasts. So Michelin is our holistic nutritionist, Christine is our women's empowerment coach and full spectrum doula, Renee is our psychotherapist, and Tasha is our holistic counselor and Reiki master. So welcome, everybody. Give me a wave. So today we're going to be talking about a broad topic, and we'd like to narrow it down as we can, but we want to talk about relationships right now. We want to talk about, I know it's a very broad topic, but we have a lot of opportunity to talk about relationships for new moms. There's probably like three groups I would talk about right now in terms of relationships. The new mom and how relationships kind of change. We're talking about relationships with your partner, or maybe even friends if you want, but relationships with your partner that change after having a baby. We're talking about maybe working moms who are in relationships, and then the co-working or co-parenting, not co-working, co-parenting stage. So co-parenting is another thing that's happening right now. So I wanted to share with you guys, I want to introduce, so something I saw that came across online yesterday was a comic, like it's not funny comic, but it's a way of conveying a message, and it was a very heated topic when people were commenting on it. So I just wanted to share just a brief, it's pretty long, but I'll share some of it with you. And it talks about the mental load of a mom. So, and I know that everybody has a different opinion on this, and we don't share one opinion or the other. We just want to discuss and see what you guys think. But when a mom has babies, that they carry in the household a lot of the mental load. And that means that they're the ones that are kind of thinking about, did little Jimmy eat today? Did he take his vitamins? Is his homework done? What time do I have to feed him? And then also I've got to clear up dinner, and I've got to make supper, make sure that they eat and everything else. So a woman always thinks twice. They think once for themselves and once for their child. That's the concept that we're talking about. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'll just pop through the first few slides of this comic, and we'll see. And then I just want you guys to get your opinion just overall on this topic. Is it true? Is it not the case? Do we share our load with our partners in our relationships? So let's see if we can just share the page here. So the title of I'm just going to make it full screen. So it's Frankie and Company that posted it. And it was shared by some doulas that I follow on Facebook. And it's called You Should Have Asked. So, and I'm sure that not everybody, but some people who have been married have been in the position of something went kind of wrong at home, and your husband or partner, well, you didn't ask. You didn't tell me that you needed help. And the woman's thinking like, maybe I shouldn't have had to or whatever. So I'll just read, it says, you should have asked. It says, back when I was
Who's asking who that question?
Oh, it's basically saying that the husband says to the wife when something goes wrong, well, you should have asked me and I would have helped you, as opposed to the woman who's always thinking ahead, and the woman that's always, thinking, I always have to carry the burden of making sure that the house is running properly, and you just expect me to manage you and ask. So let's comic and you'll kind of understand a little bit better. So it says, back when I was at my first job, this is the person writing it, a colleague invited me over for dinner. When I got there, she was trying to feed her kids while preparing our meal. Have a seat. I'll be right there. Okay, and you can see she's struggling feeding her children. She's asking them to make an effort, and the pot starts to overflow in the background. And everything spilled onto the floor. And the husband says, what a disaster. What did you do? And she replies, what do you mean, what did I do? I did everything. That's what I did. But you should have asked, would have helped. So we'll stop right there. And not every woman has experienced this, obviously. And some people have great partners, and this is not an issue. I just wanted to know what you guys thought about this, because I see, like, I don't know if our viewers can't see your faces, but some of you went, So feel free to jump in. What do you think? Is this a true reality of that some people are experiencing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because like you said, like that mental load that moms carry is huge. And I think at some point we think we can do it all. We think we're super moms, and we forget sometimes that we need to ask for help. Right. So, I mean, yeah, it's easy to look at our partner and say, you should have known. Well, yeah, we want him to know, we want him to be in tune with us, but we're not always in sync. Right.
What I'm looking at too, I agree with Christine, is the expectation there, because for him to say, you should have asked, means that I didn't fathom the fact that you needed help. And even if I did, I'm expecting you to ask. It's kind of like who's responsible for what. And so he didn't pull himself into the equation of saying we're equally responsible. He's almost like an outsider, like the guest, which again is a layer of how he thinks, right? So there's a thinking order to this too, when he's saying, you know, I wouldn't volunteer unless you ask me.
Definitely. So that's it. So if we carry on with the comic, it kind of goes into that, and that's what I kind of explaining the mental load. It's a scene that seems familiar to many new parents, and I thought I said a lot about how things get organized and how this stage in our life. So when a man expects his partner to ask him to do things, he's viewing her as the manager of household chores. So she's the project leader, and he's underlying her to know what needs to be done and when. So a lot of women definitely experience that, you know, they're expected to, right from the minute that the baby's born, is just know what to do. And then you're supposed to ask for help along the way. And lots of women, lots of comments on, my husband shares the responsibility 50-50. No issue there. But they share the tasks that maybe you've already delegated to them. And maybe, not always, but maybe they're not in tune with just your expectations, or even just knowing like the things that you think about in terms of what need to be done, they're not even thinking about those things. Like they're not important to them. So it's, again, it's managing, but also something that we've talked about is maybe letting go of some of the things that we don't need to be taken care of right now. Or when you're a new mom, like all the things that you worried about, like clutter or things on the floor or the dishes piling up in the sink, maybe you just need to change your expectations of what needs to be done.
I think so. I think the biggest thing is communication, right? Because we do tend to get into these specific roles. And again, I think the comic would probably ring true for a lot of mothers and a lot of women. My previous relationship, it was a lot more 50-50. There was a lot more involvement. And I think that really came from the communication about what our expectations were around the home, what we both, there's chores that people are good at or prefer to do, and sort of delegating in that way. And I think the assumption that there shouldn't be assumptions made on either side of the partnership as to what needs to be done or doesn't need to be done. I think there needs to be open communication and checking in frequently, especially with a new child or job shifts, or now we're in a pandemic situation. So all the rules are kind of out the window because people are either home more, or one partner is still working and the other person is taking on more. And so I think a big thing to focus on would be to have open communication about where you are right now as far as chores, household duties, and things like that.
Like, I also see it in a biological context, because from the beginning of the inception 2, the woman becomes pregnant. So, you know, the woman becomes pregnant, and everything to do with that baby is really whatever interaction her body has with the unborn child. And then until when that child comes out and is there on the first sighting, it's really, quote unquote, her doing. So after the baby's born, that's where the communication, or even before, so something's happening in the mind of those partners up to that time. But, you know, that's where the relationship aspect has to take over. because it's not your baby, it's our baby, right?
Definitely, yeah. So I'll carry on because I'll show you what else, how the author continues to explain this further. So it says, so when we ask women to take on the task of organization, at the same time execute a large portion, in the end it represents 75% of the work. You didn't do the dishes. Well, you never asked. Feminists, they say feminists call this the mental load. Again, you don't have to agree with this. It's just something, it's just a concept to think about, right? So the mental load means always having to remember that you have to add cotton balls to the list. You have to remember that your kid needs a vaccination, or today's the deadline to order the vegetable delivery for the week, or whatever. The baby grew another 3 centimeters and doesn't fit into trousers anymore. They need their shots. There's no clean clothes left. The mental load is almost always completely borne by women. So the idea that men maybe share the responsibilities, they're probably not actively thinking about these responsibilities as often as women, whether or not they're participating, but they're probably not thinking, oh, we've got to make sure we get a doctor's appointment. It's just, I would argue maybe that it's natural for women to want to care and to make sure that these things get done. This author says that it's permanent and exhausting work. So again, like they split the work. Their partners have a rather different perspective. So whilst the heterosexual men I know say that they do their fair share of household, their partners have a different perspective. So this is where I thought was very interesting, because I do live through this. So the fact that this load exists becomes obvious when I decide to take care of a simple chore like clearing the table. Like, oh, all right, I'll do it. So I start by picking something up to put it away. But on the way, I come across a dirty towel and I put it in the laundry basket, which I find full. And then I go to the washing machine. I see that the vegetables need to be put in the fridge. And as I'm putting them away, I realize that the mustard, I need to add mustard to the shopping list. And so on and so forth. And in the end, I've cleared away my table after 2 hours long, only to find it covered again in the evening. So if I ask my partner to clear the table, he'll just clear the table. The towel will stay on the floor. The vegetables will rot on the kitchen counter. That's a little bit dramatic, but and we won't have any more mustard for dinner. So that's the idea that, yes, they may share in the load, but are they doing the steps along the way that the women are taking? So it's just the food for thought, I suppose, from my side. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
Well, I think that, well, I know it's been my personal experience that women and men think completely differently, obviously, right? So, and we have been told since we were, I mean, young women, since we were born, basically, you nurture, you take care of, you nurture, that is your job. You love, you nurture, you do all these things, be a good girl, clean up, pick this up, take care of your family, take care of your kids, take care of everything.
Yeah.
Be that mother martyr and do not complain. Oh gosh, do not complain. And don't ask for things. Stay silent, because you don't really need anything, do you?
Yeah, and we can argue that that's all changing and whatever, but I think that a lot of things are still very innate in us regardless.
Innate, I like innate, because
yeah.
I'm thinking of maternal instinct.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I think we're equipped to juggle a bunch of balls at once, right? We are not hardwired the same way. Does it mean that women should suffer because of it? Absolutely not. But we can multitask better with certain things. We have a certain ability. We're not the same species, right? So
Right.
When we know that, then how do we work with that? And I think you're right. We maybe share the load, but I think the mental load is the whole other issue, right? Because we're thinking, we're 10 steps ahead. We're thinking about meals for the next week. We're thinking of groceries. We're thinking of supplies. We're thinking of the kids, you know, how many kids you have with all the different activities, deadlines.
For 1 minute. Sorry.
And, but I do think that it has to come down, I think, to communication in a way. I think that we can, as women, we can start to speak up and say what we need and say, okay, well, I didn't ask you to do this, but let's look, you know, maybe sit down and write a list of, okay, but these are the things that need to be done in the household. So how are we gonna, I mean, I know it doesn't work with every relationship, but I think that definitely women can sort of come into their power in a way of saying, okay, well, there is an imbalance, and this is where the imbalance is, and this is where I do need, we need as a partnership, as a unit, we need to make some changes.
And I find too that we have expectations because on ourselves, we know what we are able to handle. And I think sometimes you just need to remind and just say every day, sometimes every day you have to say, remember we talked about, I need help with, you know, putting away dishes, or that you were going to do the laundry on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So I think we need to not expect from them what we expect from us, because we're going to be disappointed. But I think weekends too, because if they are working and they come home late, or they're working from home all day, it's sort of, okay, what can they do in the time frame that they have? So from 6 till 11, well, they can fold laundry, right? Or they can take the kids and do something, so that now there's some self-care that I can do, some relaxation, or some things that I need to get done, like prepping for food and different things. So I think our expectations have to be different. And yeah, we can multitask like crazy, which isn't always healthy. But I think their train of thought is very central on one thing, and they do need to be told, or at least some people do need to be told. And I think we need to work with what we have that way to make it successful.
And I think another thing as role with mothers, I mean, I'm separated now, and we did get into a rhythm of really finding, like I said, finding what sort of, I wasn't the main cook, the main person in the kitchen. That was my ex. That was his thing. He loved it. So I took a back seat to that, and I picked up the other areas. But I think as a mother of 2 kids, now a single mom of 2 kids, I'm noticing that I really need to instill in my children the ability to help out, because what I realize that I'm doing is much like as if I had a partner. I'm not happy with how they would do something. I get overwhelmed if they're not doing it, and I realize that I need to be teaching my kids. I mean, they're 8 and 4, but I need to be teaching them some self-sufficiency skills and how we're a unit. So it doesn't matter if you have traditional, two partners together, or whatever the family unit is, that it's important for everyone to pitch in some way. So that's what we did yesterday. I wrote a list of, I broke it down by rooms in my little 1-bedroom apartment that I have. And I broke it down in rooms of all the different things I have to do to keep each room clean. And my kids loved it. They got super into it. They wrote their initials next to the things that they want to participate in and help. So again, I think it's about being organized and having communication, and there's not one shoe, like one shoe doesn't fit all, right? So no, one size doesn't fit all. Every family and every relationship is going to be is going to run a little bit different, I guess, differently.
I do remember a friend, so I'm not speaking from my own experience, but a friend that was in a co-parenting situation where agreeing on things when it came to the kids became very difficult. So, and that was maybe just their dynamic of their relationship. Do you find it hard to agree on the schedule? I know you're very close with your partner right now, like you guys are still actively spending time together so that you mush your COVID journey, whatever it is.
This is a new thing, right? It's just been a year now that we've been separated, and we moved from another country back to Canada and started in a branch. So it's been interesting, and we have been consistently spending a few hours together every day as a family since everything went down with the COVID situation. Luckily, as parents in my partnership with my ex, we think the sort of what we want for our kids are on the same level. So it really, really hasn't been, I've been very, very lucky that's continued. You know, when we were married, we had the same sort of ideals that were really important to have in place for our kids. And now it's continued, even though we're co-parenting and we're not living together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. But I do know stories of people that they're just not agreeing on a lot of different things, schedules, things for the kids, activities. But luckily that's not
That's not in your case.
Not
That's
my
very
reality,
good.
which is good.
That's great.
See all of you.
All right. Well, if there's is anything else that you want to add, just let me know. But anyway, we're signing off for today. Thank you so much.
Take care, ladies.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
Bye.